Hi everyone, it's Lucinda Curran here from Eco Health Solutions, and I have the absolute honour to speak with one of the speakers from the Environmental Health Conference, Narelle McDonald. Hi Narelle, how are you?
Hi, Lucinda. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing some of your expertise with us too. Let's dive straight into the questions. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so as a building biologist, our job is to evaluate and control health hazards in the built environment. And so for us, our first priority is the health and well-being of the occupants. We know that there's many adverse health effects like asthma, allergies and chronic fatigue illnesses that have been correlated with health hazards in the home. For me, I do a lot of work with people that are renovating and building, so looking at building design and looking to help individuals to realise the impact of their consumer choices and pick materials and finishes that are going to be much healthier than your standard finishes that people often choose. The thing I really love about this area of building biology is that we get to address potential issues before they become a problem. And a quote that I love that's very relevant to this is the fact that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, because we can design and make changes and make this home a very healthy one from the ground up, from the very beginning. And so that's really exciting and rewarding, and that's what I love about this area of the field.
Totally. It's such an important part. And I always think, a lot of what as building biologists we can be doing is sort of dealing with the end result of things being done badly, but getting in and doing it right at the beginning, it's beautiful.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So what piqued your interest in environmental health?
Well, I've always loved buildings and architecture. My husband's a builder, and we have a building business in Melbourne that renovates older period homes, and we've done a few renovations of our own. So buildings, I've always had a love of buildings and a love of old homes in particular. And then when I had the kids, I wanted to move into something that was health related, and I didn't quite know what that was going to be. So I sort of started down the track of looking into studying counselling. And before I committed further to that, I decided to enrol at ASIS, and that's where I was first introduced to building biology. And I would pretty much say I was hooked from the very beginning, because I, like most people, I'm sure, I was quite shocked when I began to discover that the majority of our products that we're buying and purchasing have not really been tested for safety and aren't really regulated. So that was, I was actually quite shocked. And it made me realise that I'd actually had an experience of living in a sick building myself. It was one of the last flats we lived in London, and we were excited because it was a new flat, and we'd lived in lots of old buildings, house shares, and they often had a lot of mould and things like that in them. They were run down. But this was brand new, and it had brand new carpet throughout, brand new lino, all brand new soft furnishings, cabinetry, paint, you name it. The whole thing was brand new. No one had lived there previously, and it was the middle of winter in London, so we didn't open any windows, and so it was on the first floor. It was tightly sealed, and it wasn't long before we started to get mould in the bathroom, because funnily enough they carpeted the bathroom, which I've never seen, which is not a good thing. And I got sick within a few weeks of living there with chronic respiratory and sinus issues that I went to many doctors and specialists, and I didn't respond to any treatment that they gave me, and they were at a loss as to why I wasn't responding. And I never at that time in my life ever thought it was where I was living, and it wasn't a question that I was asked by any of the doctors or specialists either. So what I realised in hindsight, that I was actually living in a plastic bag full of chemicals. And so straight away, as soon as I started to learn about building biology, I understood the importance of this field.
That's fantastic. Now you're speaking at the Environmental Health Conference. Could you tell us a little bit about your topic?
So I'm looking at healthy building design. For me and for everybody really, building a healthy home is going to benefit everybody. Our homes are living organisms, and building biologists refer to that as our third skin. So it's really important that we get these buildings right. We spend 90% of our time indoors. And I find with people, it's a really exciting time. They're making huge external changes, but it can also be quite overwhelming because there's so much going on and they have a lot of decisions and choices to make. So we're going to look at good building design and building practices, site location, because these are all key elements that we want to get right, that we need to consider. We also need to consider the age of the home, because if you are renovating and it's an older home, obviously there can be hazards such as lead and asbestos that can be there. So we're going to discuss good building design principles to look at creating a low allergy home, avoid issues with mould and condensation, and look at ways to minimise the effects of EMFs, and look at alternative materials and products that can reduce the chemical load. Because when you start to break down building materials, you start to realise the amount of chemicals that we actually unwittingly introduce in a standard build. So they're the sorts of things we'll be covering.
That is so amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. So can you tell us too, why should people come to the Environmental Health Conference?
Well, I think people should come to the conference because I believe it will benefit anyone that values living and working in a healthy building or home. Anyone that's looking to implement any changes and to further step up their health and well-being, the environment is critical. There could be areas that you never considered that could be an issue that could be highlighted to you, so that it can broaden your knowledge. And of course, anybody that's building or renovating, to understand the importance of the choices that you can make at this time. Our homes are one of our biggest investments. So it's, we want to get it right, and we want to make those homes as healthy as possible that we can for ourselves and our families. And of course, health practitioners, whose patients don't respond to good treatment that they're being given, it could very well be the environment that they're going back into on a daily basis is undermining their health. And if that's not looked at, then they're never going to get 100% better. And this is where a building biologist is a perfect person to be able to assist, because we look at the home as a holistic organism, and we look at all the different things that could be potentially impacting the people that live there.
Fantastic. Narelle, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, and thanks for your time today.
Oh, thank you, Lucinda. You're welcome. Look forward to it. Bye.
Absolutely. And everybody, if you want to come along, we'd love to see you there. You can grab tickets. The link's just down below. We'll see you there.